Good morning.
Morning.
How are you?
How's my sound?
It is all
I'm
good.
I'm great. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. How's the
Loud.
video? Quite often we're a bit blurry because of our this is a satellite upload. So, is the image all right?
Yeah, yeah. It's totally good. It's just it's a wee bit choppy, but not bad at all. And choppy's not the right word. Just it's
Okay.
totally fine. Yeah.
Right.
Thanks so much
Okay.
for being up for doing
Let's
this.
give it a shot. You're welcome,
How's everything around the
Christopher.
monastery? Yeah.
Yeah. What? Pardon me?
I said,
Say that again.
how's everything around the monastery?
Around the monastery is fabulous. It's actually a very nice time to be in a monastery during a pandemic.
Right.
It's kind of the way we live all the time. We're more or less in quarantine all the time, so there's no real adjustments,
Yeah. So the rest
except
of
that
the
we
world's
have fewer guests.
uh-huh.
Yeah, yeah. So and we do a lot of communication through video and media. So that's it's good actually. Yeah, yeah.
Your work on YouTube has been tremendously helpful for me, and I'm just guessing that I'm definitely not the only one. I just think it's tremendous what you are offering that way, and helping carry the Dhamma into the 21st century in the best way. And so, thank you for your generous gifts in that department.
Great. That's exhilarating that we can reach people all around the world. I have people in Russia and Australia and Germany and England and all throughout Thailand and so forth. You know, it's amazing how what you can do. You just put it up there, people find it and tune in. So
Totally.
that's it's great to hear from Appalachia. I think you might be the first one from Appalachia.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I know you spent some time in the West Virginia mountains, right?
I did, and that very interesting that the first Theravada forest monastery is actually in West Virginia, and it's near the border of Virginia and West Virginia. Winchester, Virginia, is the nearest town
That's where I grew up.
to. Oh, what's that famous boulevard there? Patsy
Patsy Cline.
Patsy Cline Boulevard.
I
I
went to
know
the
it
same
well.
elementary school as Patsy Cline out there in the country. Okay, okay, this is tripping me out because I didn't know that because I've heard about this amazing monastery, right across the line. Always wanted to go, never went, and so it's a big surprise. And I can't believe I didn't put that together. But maybe the universe was just waiting for that special
Yeah, I
realization.
was there between 1988 and 1991.
Wow. So we were.
So you would have been a boy in high school. You would have been in school at that time, would you?
Yeah, yeah, totally. I would have been in, whatever, like third, fourth grade back then. And that is so fantastic to learn. Okay, wow, what an amazing connection. Super cool. And so forgive me, and I apologize in advance for all of my not knowing stuff. But what does Theravada mean?
And it's pronounced Theravada.
Theravada.
So yeah, it's spelled Thera, but that's in the Pali language. That means elder.
Okay, wow.
So and it's pronounced Tara. So when a monk becomes has 10 years as a monk, he is an elder or Tara. And when he has 20 years as a monk, he is Maha Tara, a great elder. Now and that's where it runs out. There are no words after that. Now I've been a monk now for 32 years, so I passed the Mahatera 12 years ago. So I'm some sort of great grandfather types. Anyway, Tara mean and Vada Vada means the way.
Cool.
So it's the way of the elders,
Wow.
and it goes back to the just after the time of the Buddha. So there are no schools of Buddhism at while the Buddha is alive. It's only after the Buddha passes away at the ripe old age of 80 that various monks start to develop their own kind of approaches to things, and you get this schools of Buddhism. So the Theravada are a group of elder monks beyond 10 years that are differentiated from other groups. And so you've probably heard, of course, of the Mahayana. The Mahayana is a large school. Yana means vehicle.
Okay, cool.
Mahayana. And so that's found throughout China, Japan, Tibet, Korea, and the Theravada is found through Sri Lanka, Cambodia, Thailand, Burma, Laos, a little bit in Vietnam as well. And of course, all of them were originally found in India. India has very few Buddhists now.
Wow.
Buddhism more or less left India, and it's very similar to Christianity. Like the birthplace of Christianity is Israel, and it's basically a Jewish country. So in the same way, Buddhism is an international religion. It has no location or racial structures or anything like that. So it just kind of floats around on the planet. And it's actually making a return, I think, to India now. The Indians are starting to get interested in who is this Buddha guy?
Yes.
Yeah, strangely.
Yeah. Fantastic. So, so for the folks that know me, and might be interested in why why I wanted to do this interview, my introduction to Buddhism in a practical way came through. And I don't even know if I'm saying his name right, Ajahn Chah's beautiful book, Food for the Heart. And
Yes.
and
Yes.
it's just so amazing for me to connect with the Dhamma that way. Just absolutely fell in love with his with the Dhamma through his through his writing, and one of the things I like best about him and that book is the humor. And that was one of the things that I definitely connected with watching your Dhamma talks. I think that for a lot of people, they don't maybe who have just like a cursory relationship to Buddhism. They don't maybe always realize that humor is not excluded from the study. And
Right. And I think it's important to bring it that way because people are looking to lighten up,
yeah,
And so the nature of what would be called enlightenment is that the negative emotions of greed and anger and confusion are dissolved and they're replaced with something which is generosity, kindness, and clarity. And generosity, kindness, and clarity, as you know, when you're around generous, kind people, there's a lot of smiling happening,
yeah,
and there's laughter happening as well. And when you're emotionally unburdened and you're not, plagued with harassments, even the baby smiles. When after the diapers have been changed, the baby starts smiling again. If he's got his milk and his clean diapers, he's good. So that's the nature of the mind. That's the basic nature of the mind. And you see it in the baby, you'll see it in puppies, you'll see it in cats. As long as they're not being threatened and harassed, and they have enough to eat, and they're comfortable, they're basically, the smile comes back. The lightness of being comes back, and it shouldn't be made more mystical than that. It's the mystery of happiness is what it is, of lightness of being, and it shouldn't be made obscure. It's emotional well-being that is stable, long-lasting, and can persist in different circumstances. So that's what we're after, and it's a very human thing, and it shouldn't be made well. It is superhuman in some ways. How many really constantly well and happy people do you know? It starts. There's a small number, and yeah, right, and it's like a talented musician. How many really talented musicians do you know as well? So, and you can, and being a musician is not, you don't have to be born that way, you learn. and cultivate. And the better your teachers are, the better it is. You can also, of course, I taught music as well, you know, quite a lot. And I was a musician. So
What was
the
your main
teaching
instrument?
and transmission of music is the same way.
Was it
What's
classical
that?
piano? Your main instrument?
Sorry?
We got the dump trucks out here.
Guitar.
A guitar. Okay, cool. Very cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
Yes,
yeah.
when I started playing really young, and I went off to Berkeley and studied jazz there, and then jazz and classical together, and then I went to the University of Toronto for performance classical guitar as well. So spent a lot of years playing and teaching as well. And so teaching music is another thing where it can be a grim experience. You got your very strict, grim piano teacher that turns you off music forever, or it can be an enlivening, humane, enjoyable, participating experience. And the teacher has to read the student as well and relate to the student's needs at the time, and find out what they need. Do they need more discipline or less? Do they need a certain type of music that speaks to them, or etc.? So this is what Dhamma is as well. This is a personal transmission, skill in knowing who you're talking to and what they can understand, what they need. So this is also for this Dhamma, you know.
I like the Burke connection, the Berkeley, and then you lead the Birken Monastery, and
Yeah.
that is in Kamloops. How do we say that? British Columbia in Canada. How do you say that?
Yeah, it's out in the Kamloops. Yeah, or spool map backwards.
School map. The school.
So,
School
yeah, so
map.
try it backwards. Spool Mac or Kamloops. That's a native word. So a lot of the cities and areas in British Columbia are named or have native Aboriginal names, right? First Nation names.
Beautiful.
Kamloops.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you were in West Virginia for a while. For first you were you lived in the woods on your own as a I don't know what the right terms are, a hermit of some degree
Hermit.
on your own, and then it ended up in West Virginia, and then you got called to or found your way to Thailand, and were you living in the north of Thailand? Is that right?
East of Thailand. And that's the what's called the Isan, Issan, Isan, Northeast. And that's where Ajahn Chah's monastery, original monastery was. And there is a nearby monastery about 5 miles away, and that's called the International Forest Monastery. And that is where young fellows from all over the world arrive there, because the basic language is English, and usually the abbot there is a Western monk. Right now, the abbot is German. When I was there, the abbot was Canadian, and so there's been a whole series of abbots from different countries, and then the teachings and the structure is shaped around communication. They understand that they're not raised in Buddhist cultures, but that northeast of Thailand is saturated with Buddhism. There are 35,000 monasteries in Thailand alone.
Whoa.
35,000 monasteries. Yeah. And it is a completely saturated country. Buddhism is throughout the culture. Not all the monasteries are forest monasteries, and those are meditative monasteries.
Was
Yeah.
was Ajahn Chah alive at the time you were there?
Yes. Yes, he was, but he was quite ill. And we went to visit him every week to do some chanting for him. And by that time, he was in a wheelchair, and he had some sort of condition of the brain where some sort of probably a stroke or something like that. And so he was, and it lasted a long time. He survived a long time, about 8 years like that. And he was well taken care of. Monks took turns. There was usually three sets of monks, like two at a time, 8 hours a day. So he had 24-hour care and concern for him. And monastic life in Thailand is fantastic. It's quite amazing. As you have seniority, the respect goes higher, and you're always well taken care of right to the end of your life. And the young monks see a very elegant relationship between men. So this is a men's culture in monastery. And how do men live together in an elegant way? You know, you have to learn to take care of each other. And so there are, you learn about, it's a very refined kind of politeness and etc. relationship, you know. So men can live together in a peaceful way, quite remarkably. And that was an amazing experience to have and to see it at a very refined art in Thailand. Yes.
Beautiful. And you were there for 6 or 7 reigns, is that right?
I was there. I was there for 3.5 years. What happens is that you have to finish 5 years of training with your teachers in a monastery before you're given independence. Now it happens that I had also, before I even ordained, I had already become basically a monk, a hermit. And I lived as a hermit for almost 5 years before that in a little shack in the middle of nowhere. So it was a very easy transition to become a monk. I already lived like a monk, so that was, and so then still another, you are trained before you become a monk. You usually spend a year or two of preliminary trainings as a novice and so forth, and then 5 years as a junior monk, and then if you have the skills, then you're given independence, so you can actually live on your own as a hermit or move around between communities. Most monks live in community. They don't live as hermits, but it's a possible thing. I don't know. Are you aware of Thomas Merton, the Catholic contemplative monk
I don't think
who
so.
lived in Louisville, Kentucky?
I don't believe so. I don't think I know.
That's something that you should actually find a book by Thomas Merton, Merton, Thomas Merton.
Cool.
You might find some interesting writings there. He died in about 1968, but he was a Trappist monk who it had a very interesting history and was a great writer as well, and a contemplative monk,
Cool.
but in the Catholic tradition.
That's
So, but he discovered, while he was in his hermitage, in the last 10 years of his life, he was in a hermitage, and he discovered Buddhism. And so he became interested in Buddhism. And eventually he made a journey to the East and visited and became a friend of the Dalai Lama.
wow.
And went to Sri Lanka as well and visited the Theravada monks. So it's it's the beginning of this connection between West and East, and the recognition of this, that we have things in common in contemplative practice and in meditative practice and in solitude as well. We have things in common we can learn. Yeah.
Absolutely. Thank you for putting him on the radar. That's Louisville. That's bluegrass country. So to learn about a bluegrass meditator and monk will be no, not to play bluegrass music, but coming from that part of Kentucky. I have so many questions. So please just cut me off when you've got to go. I know you have a lot of responsibilities around the monastery, but I have so many things that I would love to ask about. Um, I'm really curious.
Yeah, please.
If it's possible to kind of summarize maybe in kind of three decades of your experience, like what were the significant challenges and breakthroughs of the first 10 years and the second 10 years and the third 10 years, because it's just and you have beautiful presentations uh, on 23 years as a monk and 32 years as a monk, something like that, on YouTube, which I definitely recommend folks check out. But I was wondering if that would be something that you could maybe speak to. Like, how does it evolve?
Yeah, at first, of course, yeah. Well, let's even start before I was a monk as a hermit. And I did actually practice for a period of time in a Zen monastery to really to learn to meditate. And it's the meditation that solved an issue for me. And the issue was, how do you live in the country? How do you live in the woods on your own without needing to a lot of social structures? Because I always liked that. You can only last, once you're alone in the woods for a week, then what are you supposed to be doing? You read a bunch of books or what? What? Or you get in your pickup truck and head for town? What do you do? So this is the problem is, is it possible for a human to live a simple alternative life with and have a rich and full life without the cultural distractions? Is it possible? So this was the question. And I only found the answer once I started to meditate, finding a Buddhist meditation, because they're the last sort of group on the planet that really knows how to find that well-being with something as simple as meditation, and how to change your mind in this way. So this was the quest, and so then my challenge was, okay, let's go do it. Let's find a little shack in the middle of nowhere and see how long I last.
Quite
And
brave.
if I manage to make a year, well, and I can't stand it or something, well, I'll have something to tell grandchildren about. And if I survive the year, I'll just keep going. So that was the beginning of it. And each year I learned more. And after the first year, you've gone through 4 seasons and you've survived. And you learned a lot. And so then each year after that gets easier. And it's the same. And then eventually I had a choice. I could remain as a hermit, or I could go off and be a monk, which is kind of like a professional hermit, professional trained hermit. Yeah. So it's like you're playing solo guitar, and then you decide, okay, maybe I should go and join a band for a
Nice
while.
analogy. Love that.
A band of people who play guitars. Yeah, yeah. So, and you learn from each other as well. You learn how to live alone together. And this is half of it as well. So some people do pretty well in solitude, and some people do pretty well in community. Some people do well when they have no tasks or distractions, and some people do well in the midst of uh, tasks and distractions. And so when I went to become a monk, especially with both in the West Virginia monastery and in Thailand's monastery, there's a mixture of activity and dealing with people, and then solitude and no distraction experiences, and you develop your skills in each area. So and not all people are successful at that. They don't deal with humans very well. They don't deal with people very well. Others they deal with people very well. In fact, they kind of need people, and they don't deal with their solitude very well. And others deal with activity. They like it when there's work projects and so forth, but they don't like it when that stops. And others like it when there's no work activity and so forth. So to become a full person, able to do both is a practice. And you go back and forth between these two states of nothing to do, no one to talk to, then surrounded by people, dealing with the spectrum of different personalities and various activities which monks are sometimes have to do, including building things, dealing with things, writing books, dealing with people. We have to do all these things, right? So what's that?
Fixing tractors.
Yes, fixing tractors. You get a huge spectrum of skills in the monastery, including recording audio and video, as well as writing books, building buildings, trying to clear a 5-mile road, forestry road in winter with a tractor with an 11-foot snow blade. You have to learn to do all of these things. Chainsaws, firewood, whatever it takes, you have to learn. And so you don't always have, you can't command resources either. So this is something also, how to learn to live within the rules. And one of the rules for monks is that you cannot have money. So I'm not allowed to have money. I can't buy anything and I can't sell anything.
Wow.
I don't have a bank account and so forth. So try to get around, and I have been around the world many times. I've taught in all different countries, flying around without a penny. So just try arriving in Korea without a penny in your, you better hope that plane is leaving the next day, because otherwise you got a problem. So this is you have to learn to function in this world, the modern world, at the same time with rules that were laid down 2,500 years ago that prevent you from time. You have to deal with, make decisions about, so what machinery can we use? What should we not use? How do we make a monastery without any viable source of income? And it all has to be, it's strictly by donation, and you can't ask for donations. So will something like that work? Now, it sounds completely unrealistic. It sounds like a 14-year-old made this up. And it doesn't sound like it has worked. And so also in the monastery, of course, we have lots of guests and visitors come, and there's no charge for anything. So we provide the food and the accommodation, and there's no charge and no suggested fees or anything like that. So will that work? And it has. So it's a very interesting way of living, and you have to learn this, and you have to bring it into this particular time in history, which is like no other time in history.
Yeah.
The complexity, the communication structures, the psychology of humans in this world is like no other time in history. Definitely. Also, even the population, we're approaching 8 billion people on the planet. It's never been like this before. It's tripled in my lifetime. In my lifetime,
yeah,
there's 3 times more people on the planet than have ever been on the planet. So this is just, you fly by the seat of your pants. And what I call the seat of your pants, actually, for a monk, we call it the wings of a monk. And the wings of the monk are the alms bowl and the robes. So you got your robes and a bowl that you eat once a day out of, food. I want to tell you a story about West Virginia.
Cool.
In fact, Winchester, Virginia. So we decided that we would go alms round in Winchester. And this was with another monk, Venerable Rahula, and he went on the first alms round. And there's a kind of an open street mall in the middle of Winchester. It's a nice thing, a nice wide boulevard, but with you can walk down the middle of it. And so the monk's walking down the middle of it with alms bowl. Now, when you go on alms round, you don't ask people for anything. If they want to, they can give you some food, not money, but food. And there's a few Thai and Asian restaurants in that area, so they know what monks are, and they're amazed to see the monks. So the first time, Venerable Rahula, by the way, he was a Vietnam vet who became a monk. So he's walking down the street in the middle of Winchester, and a cop sees him, Winchester policeman, and the cops, he looks up, he sees the cop standing in the middle of the road looking at this procession of monks, and he thinks, okay, here we go. So he walks up to the cop, and the cop says, "What are you guys?" And he says, "We are Buddhist monks." "And what are you doing?" "Well, we're actually on alms round, and this is one way we get fed." And the cop says, "Wait there." And so they wait there. He runs into a shop, buys sandwiches for everybody, comes out, puts it in the bowl, says, "Have a nice day."
Wow.
So yeah, I think it cuts across a lot of things. Everybody needs food. This is the one thing. Everybody understands, hey, everybody needs food. And so this is an entirely harmless thing. We're not begging or harassing anybody. All we're doing is walking through there. And if you want to have the opportunity for generosity with a perfect stranger, so you get to share food with a perfect stranger. And we put ourselves in that position on purpose. We're not allowed to make our own food, to buy our own food. So the Buddha says, you monks have got to remain dependent on the people around you for the rest of your life. You can't be independent. You must receive your daily food, and you can't store it up. So it's one day at a time.
Wow.
No money, one day at a time. So and quite often the monks are not sort of people who can't find a job or something like this. This is usually, they're from good families. They're used to they're educated, etc., and they're willing to put themselves in the position of being without resources and dependent, to be the recipient of charity, to be recipient of generosity and charity. And that's a very interesting, everybody likes to be the one who gives, but do you like to be the one who receives? How are you receiving? Now, this is an important thing to learn, is the importance that somebody has to be the recipient of generosity and kindness. It's very important. And you should be a good recipient of generosity and kindness. And sometimes you get to give, sometimes you get to receive. And quite often people want to be in the power position of giving, but they don't want to be in the position of the receiver. So this is a way of activating something in people in general, activating their sense of generosity and interdependence here. So you put yourself in that position, and that's what the Buddha forces you to stay in that position.
That is beautiful.
So,
Practicing both sides for the balance.
yeah. And what can monks do? What is the gift that monks can give is their teachings, skills and structures of how to live skillfully, how your emotional structure works, because we're forced to deal with that. We are forced to not distract ourselves and see how our minds work, what goes on in those minds. And it's only by knowing about your own mind that you can share anything with anybody else. So it's like music again. It's only after you can you understand how music it functions and how you learn to play music, that you can teach another about this in a way that they can understand and develop. But if you can't play, if you don't know how it works, how can I teach anybody? And that means a lot of time practicing, and usually alone, right? So you're alone alone in the practice room. By the way, I spent a lot of years as a classical guitarist, a solo classical guitarist, and it's not that different than being a monk. To be alone in the practice room for hours and hours. You don't just step out on stage and play, you practice. For every hour you're on the stage, you practice 100 hours in the practice room alone. And this is the beautiful experience. This is the way it is. And you get to cultivate and understand. And only after you do that, then you present it and share it with the public. And then somebody sitting in the audience, some 10-year-old or 13-year-old or whatever, and thinks, I want to do that too, So part of the teaching is to be an example. And if you live that example skillfully, then it will be a teaching. So somebody said, mankind learns at the school of example, they learn at no other.
Beautiful. Do you continue with your music? Does that interlace with your Buddhist practice, or has that kind of have you kind of graduated past that into a different place with your connection with the inner music, or however that works?
Yeah, this is one of the hardest things for people to understand. Monks are forbidden from playing music, from listening to music, from doing music. Yeah. So one of the things that you have to give up completely is music.
Wow.
And
It must have been challenging.
yeah, so that was no, it wasn't. It wasn't challenging. The reason why I gave it up was because the meditation was substituting for that. So I think, why do you do music? What is it that you get from music? It's some sort of satisfaction, some sort of well-being, and so forth. That's why. And if that satisfaction and well-being starts to come without the music, then the music drops away, and it's what music gives you is how it works. So there's I say I used to play the guitar with 6 strings attached. Now I play the guitar with no strings attached.
That's so great.
This is a kind of a silent, silent guitar, isn't it? It's a silent guitar.
Love that.
And can you hear the silent guitar? You know what the 6 strings sounds like. Can you hear the one with no strings attached? That's the type of music. And that music is so powerful, so persuasive, that it pushes out the one with the strings, So it's a type of music. Nobody should think it's a dreary or dull life. It's kind of immersed in that. The best experiences of music are what you can have internally with more or less with silence, So music has got notes, but also it's got silence. It has to have silence, doesn't it?
Yeah.
You can't just have sound. You have to have silence breaking it up. So what is that silence? That silence is part of the music as well.
Wow, that is very, very profound, because there's so many attachments that can come with music, and it's something that I struggle with, audience reciprocation, how to share things in a balanced way, all that kind of stuff. One thing that I've been trying to understand about chanting is, and I believe I'm making some progress with it. I have a every other day chanting regiment that I do for about 25 minutes. I do 5 different mantras, and when I first started doing it, it was a very musical exercise. You know, I would put melodies to all the chanting, and then I got to thinking about it because, and then I just kind of looked it up, and it was like, well, is it better to chant without a melody or with a melody? And maybe there's different times for different things, but I've gone towards and it came from hearing the Dalai Lama chant, and he didn't use a melody. It was just Om Tada Tu Tada Tu Re Sova. And so I started doing that. Is that kind of is that the proper way to do it without a melody? Of course, there's still a melody in there, kind of, but you know what I mean.
Well, this is kind of an interesting area. In Thailand, in the last chant on a monotone, Iti piso bhagava arahang samma sambuddho. But before that, they were chanting melodically. So Araniyang atakusalena yantang santang padang abhisamecha. So a little melody to it. So I think that it's more, especially if you're chanting alone, some sort of natural melody. It's not opera. So one does not spend a lot of time taking a single syllable and making a lot of elaborations on it.
Gotcha.
So you keep the words understandable and try not to think, oh, how beautiful my voice is. That's bringing too much ego to it. You know, oh, I'm such a good singer. I think everybody will appreciate this. No, you don't want that burden. But you articulate it with clarity and focus. And now this happened in the West as well. So, you know, I spent a lot of years in university studying the whole history of music. So one of the areas is Gregorian Chant. And the monks there were suspicious of the sensuality of music. So they didn't allow instruments, but they could use their voice. But if you listen to Gregorian Chant, and you should, they have a restricted range. It's about a fifth. And one of the things, they also avoid one interval, and they avoid the tritone.
Okay.
The F to B. They do not use the tritone.
Wow.
So you'll hear when they chant, they avoid the semitones. And so that there's no strong tension building up. There's no G7th having to go to C. You know, you don't feel like that drama. So there's no sense of tension which needs to be resolved. So the nature of modern music in the West is that it's always G7th and then C. You know, there has to be drama.
Yeah.
And this is what the nature of the worldly mind is, dramatic. And there's a struggle, and then there's resolution. And this is all the movies are like this too. In fact, romantic movies, isn't it? Like boy meets girl, boy loses girl,
right.
Boy gets girl in the end. So tension and resolve. Now in the monk's life, boy doesn't meet girl, boy doesn't lose girl, boy doesn't get girl back. It's all just nice and serene. So this is the way you understand this chanting is it has no melodrama in it. It is not tension and release. It's a serene flow. Every note in it is equally resolved. And so you make your intervals of that nature and restrict the range. So it's not dramatic. And that soothes the mind. So the mind will respond to this. Yeah. The mind will respond to this. As you know, music can manipulate your emotions. And you see what is serene music? What is the nature of serene music? So that this chanting is to bring you into a state of serenity and focus. Yeah.
Cool. So I was once again, as I often or perhaps usually do, going from one extreme to the other, which is kind of like, finding the middle way, which is, the way for balance. Thank you for sharing
Yeah.
that. That's been confusing. Yeah. I was wondering if
Right.
we might be able to talk a little bit about Padmasambhava. A lot of folks, myself included, didn't ever learn about Padmasambhava in school or in life. A bit of a secret master in some ways. I haven't heard. Of course, I haven't. I've probably just seen maybe a tenth or a quarter of what you've presented on YouTube. Does your lineage include him in the lineage and in the teachings, or is that kind of a different ballgame?
It's a different ballgame. He is a lineage master in the Tibetan school, and he's a very, very important lineage master in that school. And so Padmasambhava is the very dominant guru in Tibetan school, and there's a character named Bodhidharma, who is the master in the Zen school. In China, Zen is pronounced Chan. So it actually came from India to China through the Bodhidharma, and Buddhism came up to Tibet, Padmasambhava, etc. So there are important teachers in lineages. Now, the Tibetan school is. I have actually sat right beside the Dalai Lama. I had the pleasure of sitting right beside him at a conference. In fact, he has a brother, and we taught a mindfulness course together.
Wow.
Yeah. His brother was a monk, and he became a lay person, but he still teaches meditation. And so we had in Vancouver, we gave a dual talk on mindfulness together. He's a real character, that his brother.
Wow, what a great opportunity.
So the Dalai Lama, I greatly appreciate the Dalai Lama. His character is just what you feel like when you meet him or sit beside him is that here is one nice human. He is one nice, kind guy. And that's all he cares about. He has all kinds of course, he studied since he was a child and everything. He has all kinds of knowledge. But all that stuff it's like theory, it's music theory. Can you play something that makes me cry? Can you play something that makes me smile?
Yeah.
That's all that theory is only for that purpose. And so he is just one truly nice guy that you can't feel any threat from, danger from, anything like that. He's a harmless human being, is what he is. So that's obviously a very beautiful thing.
Yeah.
So yes, and there is less in our particular tradition, the Theravada tradition. It goes right back to the Buddha. So the Buddha is the first sort of major figure, And then there are figures along the way. And in the Thai tradition, Ajahn Chah is a great figure. And there's another monk called Ajahn Mun, who was older than Ajahn Chah, preceded Ajahn Chah, and he is a kind of a revitalizer of this withdrawal to the forest tradition. And he's an important lineage figure in the modern movements as well. So yeah, I have actually I appreciate all of these people. I like Taoism. I read about the great yogis. I read about the great Catholic contemplatives. I love Thoreau. Thoreau was a great inspiration for me, living in his little cabin. One day I was reading Walden when I was in my little shack, and I realized, that Thoreau lived 2 years and 2 months in his shack. Only 2 years and 2 months.
Wow.
And I remember the day when I passed Thoreau in terms of how long I'd been in my cabin. I'd been over 2 years and 2 months. I'd been longer in my cabin than Henry Thoreau.
That's a milestone, yeah.
And by the way, Henry, he went there when he was 28. He wrote the book much later. He was 28 years old when he went to that cabin, and it was 2 years and 2 months. I was about the same age, about 29 when I went off. And so, there are beautiful people out there with great ideas and great expression and everything. One should be open to these things, to learn from different traditions, as you do in music. But at the same time, there's a need for mastery of at least one tradition. You need to be fully and completely competent in some clear tradition. And then you can evaluate and add to and appreciate other things. But you need competence at least in one type of practice.
I felt like, for some reason, I guess it's just a spiritual affinity, perhaps, but my admiration for Ajahn Chah and the way he was able to, often humorously, inspire me to cultivate my practice. The two things that made me kind of love it the most or do it the most was right practice being constant practice. I had the common misconception that meditation is something you do when you sit on the floor, and he's like, no, meditation is something you can do, or you should do, all the time. And so, like, in conversation, standing at the bank, all the time, driving the car, meditation. I think that's one of the big things that allowed me to see see its advantages quickly. And the other thing that helped me really connect was the discipline of doing it even when I didn't want to. Those were kind of the two footholds that helped me start to climb. Are there any things that along those same lines that you feel like are very helpful, kind of getting folks to lock in with their discipline, with the practice in beginner students?
Yeah, so most people have to deal with demands of life, and but it would be a shame if they could only be well, happy, and peaceful while they're sitting quietly in a room. So we want to be happy all the time, well all the time, and you can and you should carry this into life. And so the first thing, it begins in the morning, and quite often I just give a few minutes for a half an hour in the morning. But if you only have a few minutes, I tell them, let's do surprise meditation. So if you only have a minute or two, let's do surprise meditation. And the question that you ask yourself is, what is it that would surprise me at this stage in life? What is it that I don't know about the world?
Wow.
Do I not know that people don't say what I want them to say? Do I not know that the store that I want to go to is sometimes closed? Do I not know that accidents happen? Do I not know that murders happen? Do I not know that wars happen? Why don't I just grow up and say, you know, there's really nothing that surprises me anymore.
All right.
So I don't want to be surprised and dismayed at the world. I think I'm more than 15 years old now, and I know this stuff happens. And I do not have to be surprised, shocked, dismayed, angry, thinking they should know better. So I like to turn that around and say, I should know better.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
know, so if you start that way, it only takes a few minutes. Because if you walk out the door unprepared and then somebody uh, is parked in your parking spot and you think, God damn it, you know what? Why is this happening? That's just a lack of preparation. But if you had just 2 minutes to say, nothing surprises me, nothing shocks me, I'm not in charge of the universe, I'm not telling it what to do. It's I'm not in charge of the weather either. It's just happens. Come on now. And I have a choice. I can be well, at ease in the midst of these things or not. And in fact, once you get to the hang of it, you almost hope that something happens to see how you're doing, you know. I can be happy when somebody's shouting at me. It's over, right? People shout. Nothing new there. It's fine. Let's see if I can just carry this through the day. How am I with this? Oh, I have, it's nice to have given up running the universe. It's really nice to not have to run the universe anymore. It's really tiring running the universe, I'm telling you. So stop running the universe and you will be unburdened. Yeah.
Wow, that is you know,
That's
right.
that's what the memory that you carry into life, eh? So you keep forgetting that. So you remember, right, I'm not in charge of the weather. I'm not in charge of the traffic. I'm not even in charge of my friend or my dog even. In fact, I'm not even in charge of my body. It's doing its own thing. Like I don't know this thing. I don't know where it came from. I don't know how it grows. I don't know how it works. I try to take care of it, wash it every now and then, eat it, but that's about all I know about it. You know. So you come into the reality of things. This is reality.
That's liberating and also a very responsible thing to do. I guess you know one of the things that maybe people souls get is boredom. You know, they deal with, so that they make up all these things that it's like, oh, I'm gonna pretend I'm forgetting what I actually know so I can create this drama that I have to deal with, so at least I have something to do besides just be with myself and space and deal with you know, that side of things. That's surprise meditation. Wonderful.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's the next thing is to find out that it's not dangerous not to think.
Ah,
So this we're the most educated society ever. You start at school when you're 5 years old, and they only reward you for thinking. And they get this little frontal cortex working, and you graduate from school, but they never show you how to turn it off. They show you how to turn it on, but then it won't turn off. It doesn't turn off by itself. You have to literally learn how to turn this thing off, because if you keep this thing running all the time, it overheats. It's a radiator that just is low on liquid, you know. So you almost have this heat in your forehead all the time. You're worried, thinking, remembering, planning, worried, thinking, remembering, planning, worried, thinking, remembering, planning. And do you ever get a rest from this? Even at night, you can't even shut this thing off. It just talks to you endlessly. So that you should realize it's not dangerous. It's very helpful. It's a cooling experience to set aside the past and the future, the planning, the worrying, the fear, And your whole body will thank you for that. In the same way that you need sleep, you also need periods of consciousness that are not plagued by noise. So the quiet and so forth is restorative, helpful, and you say, I want to learn how to enter that more often. And you'll be surprised as well that out of that stillness and coolness, that new visions arise by themselves without trying. So this is like composition, or writing a book. You sit down in front of that blank paper. You can't really think of these other things. Things pop up. Music comes to you. Mozart talks about like how did he compose? He said, I have no idea. It appears as a kind of a big vision, and then slowly details start to fill in. It's like I'm coming towards a castle in the fog, and I can see the outline of it, and then as I get closer, it gets clearer and clearer, and all the details are filled in. Then I just write it down. So he's not trying to do that. He's not thinking, now how will I compose? No, it starts to appear. So we have to learn to trust that silence and non-trying is very productive and will produce things that can't be produced by effort and will. So we trust that this silence is not just a waste of time. It's also very productive and can give you new ideas, new visions, new approaches to things. So we sit with that and trust it. At the very least, it will be a restoration, a refreshment. And sometimes it will give you a new insight as well.
That is beautiful. Yeah, got to rest the overheating mechanism. You've been so generous to spend this hour sharing your wisdom, and I would love to keep going, but I know that you have probably a lot going on there. Is it okay to just maybe have one more question or two?
Sure. Yeah, sure.
Cool. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
So one of the things that fascinates me, and of course, I came from, well, not of course, but I came from, the Southeast, and my folks were, raised like Southern Baptist and Episcopalian. So Jesus at the helm. They both kind of threw the baby out with the bathwater, weren't into it, and then came back to spirituality through like Jungian psychology. But I've given a lot of contemplation to Jesus and understanding like who he is. And I think a lot of the folks that are probably watching, that's their home base with regard to their cultural context with spirituality, all that kind of stuff. And I have kind of three facets of kind of the same question. So. And this may be a misconception, but it's kind of something that I've been exploring, continue to explore, which is that I feel like in a way, there's like this continuing between like Christianity, Buddhism, Hinduism, and Bon shamanism, and it's almost like the way that I've been kind of thinking about it, trying to figure it out, relate to it, is that like Buddhism is like the director's cut of Christianity, and Hinduism is like a director's cut of Buddhism, and Bon shamanism could be like a director's cut of Hinduism, but so many threads, and that may be off base or whatever, but just trying to relate to the continuity of it all. Of course, they have it's all trying to be a good person and be peaceful. The goals are the same, all that kind of stuff. I'm really interested in your thoughts on, because. And I read stuff on the internet about Buddha said this, Buddha said that, but I've had a lot of personal connection with like with Ganesha, and I read that Buddha said yeah, the Ganesh mantra is good. Could you speak a little bit to those connections, the valid connections between Buddhism and Hinduism, which are helpful for Buddhism?
Okay, so just at the end of that, we just got to Buddha and Ganesha, and then you froze
Oh,
because of the
so
satellite connection. So I was just patiently waiting until you came back to life, and now you're back to life. I would say if you really want to get into some the cosmic area of this, there are 10 videos on my channel called Buddhist Cosmology, and you will see how amazing a full description of all the other dimensions of being that the Buddha describes in great detail. And now in Christianity, there's all it is a slight hint about something called heaven, perhaps. There's no articulation at all. I mean, the farthest that Christ goes in the New Testament, he says, "In my Father's house are many mansions." They're asking him about heaven. In my Father's house are many mansions. Well, thanks. Can you go into more detail?
yeah, please.
So the Buddha, the Buddha having lived to be 80 years old, Christ having taught for about 3 years, having very little opportunity to fully expand. Now, you see in the New Testament that he and his close disciples there's a 5,000 people. He comes, he gives it some talks, he tells some stories, they distribute bread and fish and so forth, feeds the crowds. And then he says, now let's go to the other side of the lake. And he just takes his inner disciples and they go across to the other side of the lake. And then he talks all night long. And they say, or one of them says, what he said could fill all the books in the world. And what he says to the crowd is just a few little stories. But what he knows but he only teaches his inner disciples this because they have lots of time and they're away from the household life. So there have been a huge detailed explanation given of much more, but he could only talk to people who have all the time in the world to just be there and listen. In the case of the Buddha, because he lived much longer and was surrounded by disciples who had nothing else to do but listen, question, etc. So he had a very expansive description, which was memorized by the Sangha. So that by the time he died, there were many, many thousands of monks and nuns, and he had given many thousands of talks to them. And they would rehearse these, and so he articulates the entire spectrum of the universe, from the highest to the lowest and everything in between. And he talks about how it is that you see these things, how it is that you become these things. So it's very highly articulated, more than any other tradition. So the length of the basic teachings of the Buddha are about 12 times the volume of the whole Bible. That's spoken by one person, a single person, over a period of 45 years. So he's 35 when he has his awakening, and he teaches. A lot of the details have been filled in there. And so you can, and this is a part that's often left out of Buddhism. When it was brought to the West, the monks didn't know what to say to people in the West. They're coming from a different culture, and they just wanted to give them some exercises for their mind, some goodwill. But the Buddha actually did articulate huge amounts of detail about your interactions with other beings in different dimensions and so forth. So I have taken the time with a friend of mine, Ajahn Punadam.
He's so great.
We made 10, try to cover the whole cosmology of Buddhism in 10 videos. And they're up there on YouTube. So we just sit down and go back and forth. And we have a couple of women here who do the audio and video, and they put in all of the visuals so that you can sort of see what these things are and so forth. So I would recommend just enjoyably watching the whole series of cosmology. And this, by the way, when you go to Asia, this cosmology is in their bones. So Buddhism is not a narrow kind of practice of meditation for them. It's a vast relationship to all kinds of dimensions of the universe as well. So I thought it's time to show the West, because we can do it now with video, that there's a huge dimension which may be appealing to the human heart, that we've only been talking about a narrow amount of this, but it's time to, perhaps some people will be shocked by it, but it's time. You're all growing up now. It's time. Got to hear the news about the size of the universe and so forth. So those are the articulations that we went to a lot of trouble and tried to really capture them so people could watch them again and again and so forth. They're all up there free on the YouTube channel.
Yes.
And it will, show you the vastness of things. Yeah.
Yeah, I've enjoyed about half of those. I need to
Yeah,
go.
I've got a great interest in.
Yeah.
I've got a great interest in the communication between India and Christianity as well. And it came through the Greeks. The Greeks invaded India in the 3rd century BC, 300 years before Christ. And Buddhism was already there. And they encountered these, and the Greeks had a great respect for philosophers. So when they came there, they brought philosophers to interview the Indian philosophers, the Buddhist monks and the Jain monks and so forth. And it was Alexander the Great that invaded. And he was very interested in books as well. Alexander the Great's teacher was Aristotle. That's his personal tutor, Aristotle, the great philosopher. He brought back all this information to Greece 300 years before Christ. Now, the Greeks were down in Israel, the great library of Alexandria in northern Egypt. The town was named after Alexander, and it had the biggest library in the world when they tried to collect every book on the planet at the time. It's only about 2 days sail from Israel, from Jerusalem. And the scribes in the Great Library of Alexandria were Jewish. They had good skills with language and writing. So the Greeks who had conquered Egypt brought Jewish scribes to copy books. So this information was flowing around the Middle East. So the New Testament, what's the first language of the New Testament? Greek. It's written in Greek. The Greeks knew about Buddhism and it filtered out through there. So there can be, we don't know how much influence it had, but it could have, ideas from the Greeks about Buddhism could have been floating around in the Middle East and have made their way into some of the teachings of Christianity. Yeah.
Beautiful. Yeah, I think that there's the righteous threads of love weaving all of it together, and then maybe as you go back and back and back, you're getting farther into kind of the what to my lens looks a lot like shamanism, and I don't know much about Bon, but it seems like that's some kind of esoteric nature-based philosophy system or cosmology that has a lot of influence on Buddhism. And one of the profound things, my wife and I study Peruvian plant medicine, so we're into plants and trees, and the symbolism with the Bodhi tree, receiving the enlightenment under the Bodhi tree, is significant for us, the connection to the planet. And one of the things that I'm trying to learn more about, very fascinated with, is often it seems the way that Buddhism is presented, or maybe it's just my perception of how it's presented, is very male centric. Buddha, monks being such the prominent feature of it all. But one of the things I was really felt like a very inspiring revelation was to learn about and please correct me if I'm getting this wrong, is that Buddha received his enlightenment from perhaps a Dakini white Tara. Is that correct, or is that a misconception?
That uh, is, I would say that is incorrect. The Buddha's enlightenment is what makes him a Buddha is that he's actually self-enlightened. He's not, his enlightenment doesn't come from a man or from a woman. It arises out of his own experience. So he doesn't get it from any other source. And that's what defines a Buddha, is one is self-enlightened without reference to any teachings available. But the Buddha is the first to establish a woman's order. So the first nuns, Buddhist nuns, are within about 5 to 7 years of the establishment of the monks' order. This is a very radical thing at that time. This is 2,500 years ago. And women are now invited to leave the household life and become monastics and live independently. And then he is asked, can they attain enlightenment? Yes, women can attain enlightenment with all of the psychic powers, etc. They can be completely free of all of the negative emotional structures and so forth. So that's an absolutely radical experience at the time. So the female is given a full place in early Buddhism.
Cool.
So, but the Buddha is like Einstein in some ways. He's having a unique insight, like into relativity, that nobody had thought of before. It didn't mean that there were other people around, like Newton had sort of understood the nature of the motion of the planets and gravity and so forth. And that was the first time to synthesize all that. And this came out of their own experience. Einstein knew about Newtonian physics and so forth, but he had a insight that absolute mind-blowing kind of relativity. And this is what makes him Einstein. After that, of course, even in high school, you start to hear about relativity, the speed of light and all this kind of stuff. And any bright young man or woman can understand this now, but nobody could produce it before that. It's an original insight. So what the Buddha is an original insight, which after it has been understood, can be then communicated, and many other people can understand it through that. So that's the so-called enlightenment, is something that you come to by understanding. But to come up with that originally is the mark of a outstanding genius. After that, it just takes a lot of some intelligence and a lot of work to get it. But you can understand it because somebody else has had a breakthrough. I want to talk a little bit about this word shaman. Monks, Buddhist monks, are referred to as samanas. So I'm a samana, and that word samana is the same word as shaman.
Oh, wow.
So the shaman is the samana, and that shaman samana is a person who lives on the margins of things. It lives on the outskirts of society. So the shamans they're the last house at the village there, the strange guy at the last house at the village. And he is channeling he's seeing other things, other dimensions. And this is what was around at the time of the Buddha. He was hanging out with shamans when he first went out. of the palace. And this is what all Buddhist monks are referred to as samanas, which is shaman. Same thing. So it's what it is it's the kind of organized process of learning about this in a systematic way and being able to absorb it, and then possibly teaching it as well. It was chaotic, hermits living here and there, and very mystical. Some of them couldn't articulate. They could do it, but they couldn't explain it. So this is like musicians sometimes. Great musician can't tell you how they do it.
Very familiar
they can
with
do
that.
it, but they can't tell you how.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
That is fascinating.
So this is yeah, that's the connection. Yeah.
Very cool. Just to for a little more clarity on so when someone might read about the Dakinis being bestowers of enlightenment, is that a different tradition, or do the Dakinis have a place in the original Shakyamuni's cosmology?
They are, there's various beings from the heavenly kind of realms that are constantly visiting the Buddha and in discourse with the Buddha. They come usually to get teachings. So the Buddha appears to them as this glowing light. And because of that glowing light, they're attracted to going there. And they go there to ask questions usually. Although they're very extraordinarily beautiful and have arrived there through goodness and virtue and generosity, they still don't know everything. So they're usually it's a conversation where they're asking questions and the Buddha is replying. This is something like, say, people used to go and visit Mother Teresa in Calcutta. And now Calcutta at the time where she was the worst horrifying ghetto in the planet. It was just people dying on the street and leprosy and starvation, people literally starving to death on the street, a place you just don't want to go. But in the middle of that is this little nun who's people who are interested in goodness and so forth. They can see this little glowing light halfway across the world. So they'll go from Germany or they'll go from Chicago and they say, I want to go see Mother Teresa. They'll go to Calcutta, because that's where she lives, to the horrifying center of this, but they're there to see Mother Teresa. Like, why are you doing this? What should I do with my life? So those people who go to visit her are also beautiful. They're not ordinary people. Ordinary people don't go halfway around the world to a miserable ghetto to visit somebody.
Yeah.
But somebody who is beautiful, is interested and sees that beauty anywhere on the planet. If you have that mind, you will see other minds 1,000 miles away. You will visit halfway across the world. If it takes you you got to walk for 100 miles, you will do it. And that mind attracts mind. And so this is the interaction at the higher levels of the cosmos, of the higher heart, the higher mind. Now, if you want to communicate with those higher minds, you have to refine your own mind and then they visit you. So you are looking for what you get a better vision. The higher you go, the better your vision becomes. And then you encounter new beings at that level and you start to converse at that level. This is again like music. The more then you can recognize, oh, that guy is amazing, like holy mackerel. But you couldn't know that before you got to a certain level. Until you get to a certain level, you can't appreciate. Then you can ask them the question, say, now, how do you do that? You know, like, can you show me that riff, you know? Yeah. So this is happens in various walks of life, including the spiritual life. and the evolution of the higher mind, the heart. And so then you start to see various people from long ways away. So you're talking to me from the Appalachians. I'm on the west coast of British Columbia. And we say, sure, we'll talk, of course. And we're talking and having this conversation about the higher things in life. See, you find. Yeah.
Beautiful articulation of that. I just have one more question, and thank you again for your patience with my questions and everything. I wonder a lot about in the Thai tradition, the Thai forest tradition, which I just love that that the whole system is based in the forest. Do y'all drink a lot of tea?
Yeah.
Cool.
uh, Whatever is available, actually. You're alms mendicants, so you have to rely on walking for alms every day. A village, and that's a very poor area of Thailand, so you're just getting sticky rice and bananas and a few things like that. And if you're lucky, you get some tea as well. The villagers will might maybe donate tea, and tea, by the way, is something that you can actually keep and have any time, 24 hours a day. You can have some tea.
Cool.
Uh, Tea and coffee are lifetime requisites.
Wow.
They have no, not restricted in terms of the time of day that you can have it. Food must be taken before noon, but tea and coffee are anytime.
Beautiful.
And in Thailand at that time, tea was the basic thing that you could have. This is in Tibet as well. They're just drinking 20 cups a day of this tea, but
Very.
that's to keep them warm. It's butter, it's salt and butter tea. So
Wow.
it's quite different than what you would imagine as tea, but you must try it sometime. Take your tea, put some mushroom soy sauce in it,
Hmm.
mushroom soy sauce and a little pat of butter. Put that in, stir it up, especially in winter, and it's like you're drinking mushroom soup, actually.
Wow.
It's
Very
good for you in
interesting.
winter.
The mushroom connection. So one of the things that we study with the plants is that they are master teachers and can teach a lot of different things and heal, of course, all those kind of things. I was wondering if there is any direct kind of expostulation in the Thai tradition about interacting with the plants in that way as elemental spirits, or if it's just kind of, no, we're just drinking tea.
Sure. First of all, the Thai monks usually know all about herbal medicines. Ajahn Chah knew all kinds of herbal medicines, and the whole Thai society, like their society is around massage, Thai massage. You know this,
Yeah.
the art of manipulating the body, and herbal medicines. It's just pervasive, saturated with that, and every little thing they know all this stuff, and it's been preserved quite well because Thailand was never colonized. The British colonized a lot of things, and China came into Tibet and interrupted the whole culture, and a lot of that stuff will be lost. Thailand was the only Southeast Asian country that was never colonized.
Wow.
So a lot of this knowledge, it was never interrupted. So that, yeah, you'll find every kind of like herbal knowledge and stuff in the Thai forest tradition. The other thing you should know is that monks are forbidden from killing or damaging plants.
Mm.
So it is not allowed for a monk to cut down a living tree
Yeah.
or even pluck a flower.
Wow.
That's not allowed.
Wow.
Yeah.
So once
So
again,
there's a respect. The Buddha himself articulating that not to kill the living plants, monks. It's not a precept for lay people, but it is for monks. They're supposed to have a completely harmless interaction with the nature, with all the animals, humans, and with living plants as well. So we're living harmoniously with them. And there's a lot of interesting lore, and you in the cosmology videos you'll see who lives in those trees. Those trees have what are called rukadevas. Rukadevas. So rukadevas is a tree-dwelling angel. They're not in the heavens. They actually share the environment with us, and they live using the tree as their location. And that being is associated with that tree. And you see some of the trees, like on the west coast of California, they're 2,000 years old. Some of them were around when Christ was around. Some of them are around when the Buddha was around, 2,500 years, and they're huge, massive things. And you walk into that forest and you think, wow, just the feeling of it. And these are like the locations of these other beings are living associated with that tree.
That is an intense.
I don't know whether you remember. Yeah, I don't know whether you remember. There was a young woman named Julia Butterfly. Do you know of
Not
this
sure.
woman, Julia Butterfly?
I don't know.
Well, she lived in a tree. She lived in one of those trees in California.
Yeah.
She was a young lady, probably 20 or so, and she climbed up one. They were going to cut it down. One of these the loggers were going to cut it down. So she climbed up in this tree, and she lived up there for 2 years on a branch, about 150 feet up. And she had the tree kept covering her with sap, like this perfumed smell and so forth. And we went to visit her. So we have a monastery. We went to see Julia Butterfly up in the tree. And one of the abbots down there eventually after she came off the tree, he had a double interview with Julia Butterfly and the abbot.
Wow.
And when we went to see her, it's to see Julia Butterfly, and when she was up in the tree. And as we're walking there, I said to him, you know what? I think she, in her previous life, was a Rukadeva. Wow. She was a Deva who lived in a tree. Now she, as human, she wants to protect that tree. She's willing to risk her life, and she's going to live in that tree until it's safe, because she's been drawn back to her previous connection. So yeah, you try to figure out, she herself doesn't understand why she went and lived in that tree and risked her life, because they tried to get her out of that tree, So you see this incredible connection with the forest and the spirits, etc. in amongst these. This is saturated through nature, and this is one of the dimensions of nature. And that's one of the reasons why monks are forbidden from cutting down a tree, because there's spirits that live in these trees, and that would be to harm them as well.
That is so fascinating. Is there
So this is actually one of the rules for monks. Yeah.
Wow. So within the Thai tradition and the philosophy and wisdom about the Ruka Devas and understanding that the monks I can't remember the word you say, but are classified as shaman. So this is really appealing to my sensibility with what we're learning about in South America. Is this a like are there monks that really kind of specialize in the connection with the Ruka Devas? Is that a big part of it, or is that a smaller part, or kind of an esoteric part, a secret part?
It's not esoteric. I mean, certain monks have the capacity to see into these other dimensions, and others don't. But we all have to follow the same rule. Even though you may not be able to detect this, you must not harm that being.
Yeah.
And so some people have the sensitivity and communicate with this, and others No, no, can't.
Wow, that is so inspiring
Uh,
to hear more
it's
about.
like some people have perfect pitch and others just relative pitch. So you got to, once you give me the first pitch, then I can know the other ones. But some people just know they know all the pitches off. They can't be fooled.
I just
So
your analogy.
some people have these extraordinary sight capacities. Yeah.
That is fantastic. You've been so generous to share this wisdom with us, and I look forward to watching more of your videos on YouTube. And I hope folks will visit the Birkin Monastery website and learn more about your work up there. If we were going to close out in a way that would be for the highest benefit of all living beings, what would that be? What would feel good for you?
Well, I usually the end of a conversation with the Buddha, which all and then monks keep the same phrase, is just be happy.
Mm.
That's all every conversation he ever had, it's like, just be happy.
Yeah.
All I'm trying to tell you is just be happy, relax,
It's
enjoy yourself,
simple.
be
Don't
happy.
make it complicated. Oh, that is
Yeah,
wonderful.
yeah.
And maybe down the road we could have another conversation. And please, if there's ever anything I can do to help it in any way, I would love that. And I look forward to learning much more from you and the great work that you're doing. I feel like even in 100 minutes we're just scratching the surface. And I just it's interesting, like my heroes growing up was like Cal Ripken, and then it was like Bill Monroe, or like RZA the rapper, and now like my heroes are like monks, and like folks who are spreading the Dharma and stuff like that. So thanks for being a hero and being so generous with your sharing your wisdom and the Dhamma.
Well, you're most welcome. And stay at the interview kind of thing. You've got a great talent with this. So, and I hope you keep up your music, unless, of course, your meditation takes it over and
No
the
strings attached.
mandolin, all the strings get cut off.
That's a
Yeah.
wonderful meditation, and I love the Winchester connection. That was such a beautiful surprise to realize here with you today. Super cool. Lots of
Yeah.
love. Thank you so
Okay.
much.
Okay. Goodbye, Christopher.
Bye.
Bye.